actually, I mean, we've been on for a while. I never got to the topic I really wanted to talk to you about. I feel like you'd be very good. First of all, I genuinely think the kind of ideas you have, you'd make for a great recurring guest to a podcast overall. I don't know how many podcasts you've done because you have a solid range, philosophically, psychologically. You speak about startups and business and like all of this stuff. And so I thought like a good intersection of this might be to some degree what your thoughts on AI are, given the current state of affairs. Bring me up to speed. Where are we at? And how do I think about it in terms of comparing it to myself, so on and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to say about it. Of course, everyone has used ChatGPT, I'm hoping by now.
Sure.
I mean, the way to think about AI is, I mean, it's a model of the data you throw into it. And what I mean is that if you throw, and most current LLMs are trained on the entire web, essentially. So in that sense, you can think of an LLM as a mixture of just
everything on the internet.
Yeah. So with data, you have to think in terms of data distribution, which means what kind of scenarios does that data cover, and the more scenarios your data covers, and the more deeply it covers, your AI will be very good at those things. So, for example, lot of these new models like O1 and O3 of OpenAI reasoning models, they are good with math problems because they are trained on tons of data around math, and a lot of these problems have a right and wrong answer. So what they end up doing is they end up generating through previously trained models, they end up generating a lot of potential solutions, and the solution that turn out to be right, they include in the data, and the ones that are wrong, they exclude in the data. And similarly, not just for, let's say, LLMs, even image models like Stable Diffusion, the kinds of data you throw into it is the kinds of images that they end up producing. That's why historically, these models were very bad at even producing 5 fingers.
Why?
Because it required like very precise, for example, if early models, if you ask them to produce image of someone from the behind, they would end up producing head.
Voldemort.
Yeah.
Like the Voldemort complex.
Because more images have face than the back. And similarly, hands were not very good because most images of people are just torso without fingers. So when you lack that data, the model will do anything. So the more and more progress in AI has been, the way to think about AI is less about the models and more about the data we have in the current paradigm. Which means it will end up doing things where you have a ton of data. And all the current foundation companies are on a mission to just get more data and wider data and deeper data.
So effectively you're saying कि एक mixie है बीच में, which is the processing part. और उसमें जितना आप माल भरोगे, depending on how the mixie mixes, on the outside you'll produce results. And in whichever sector you have more data, the results will be finer in that sector, right? And so all this processing, this algorithm, this reasoning model is trained on the entire internet. So not only is it just that the entire internet ka textual data is being processed, but the biases in that data are probably also sticking in. Like for instance, I'm giving an example. It's a comical example.
Like if you, for example, ask ChatGPT, who is more likely to be a nurse, it'll just say a woman. Because that's what the internet is. So it doesn't have a bias of its own. The bias is not in the AI, bias is in the data.
Right.
And I don't even know whether it's a bias. It's just the way to think about AI is just like a compression of the data you put in. Just like you do like gzip, it just makes the whole data. It's a smaller file. Similar way you should think about it. It just outputs the data it's ingested.
Could you say at that point that it is doing anything close to thinking?
I mean, it depends how you define thinking. Thinking is just like a word.
Audio? No, so, sorry, I'll ask this question again. Do you think at that point...
I mean, what's thinking for you? How do you define it?
Well, that's a very good question, but I'm assuming... Okay, let me reframe this. Let's fragment it. Do you think at this point, any of these reasoning models, LLMs, are capable of creative thought?
Again, we get into this question of what's creative. So the way to think about it, I mean, in technical terms, what it's called as interpolation versus extrapolation. What interpolation means, let's say I have seen 2 data points, and if I get a new problem that's somewhere in between it, let's say you have to predict prices of a house given like in an area. If you know the price of the house in one corner and you know the price of a house in another corner of the same locality, you can somehow average them and say for a new house it will be like probably this. That's interpolation, where the training data is the 2 prices of houses and the new price is the new data point that you want to predict on. That's interpolation. But let's say you only have data for one locality and I ask you to give a price for a house in New York. In the current paradigm, you won't be able to do that. And that requires extrapolation. And the way humans do it, we don't just, let's say, do this averaging out of 2 prices. We build a world model of, let's say, what drives prices. We'll start thinking about prices that are driven by scarcity, location, metro access, so on and so forth. And you'll do some purchasing power parity adjustments and you'll get to a reasonable adjustment because you have the model of the world, a formula for how things happen, how prices are determined. So in that sense, current LLMs are very good with interpolation. Let's say if you throw them a new problem and it's within the vicinity of the problems they've seen, they'll be great at it. But if you throw them a completely new problem in the data set, then they can't.
Okay.
They don't have an internal model, a very cohesive one.
So maybe this is a good place to sort of take the boundary, right? For instance, if somebody has to solve cancer, that's a problem in the vicinity of few other problems, if any. Like it's a rare problem. We don't know how to solve it. It's not interpolatable in a certain way.
Yeah.
There might be some threads that come from research in virus killing elsewhere, or whatever. This cancer solving is a problem I expect humans to solve. And let's go back 3-4 years to make it simple. Say we are in 2020, OpenAI has not launched ChatGPT-3. Yeah. Somebody says, Prakhar, who do you think will solve cancer? I will say scientists will solve cancer because, that's an original thought. They will be able to produce an idea around it, test it, so on and so forth. Now, do you think LLMs as they stand today are able to do something of that nature or no?
So, I mean, you have to think about how humans solve it. So, how human scientists would solve it, let's say if I am trying to solve, I mean, there's no such thing as solving a cancer. It's a million diseases. But let's just assume cancer is just one big thing. But if you want to solve it, you'll have a model of, let's say, how biology works. You'll have like an understanding of how genes get expressed and what gets like knocked off in cancerous cells and how does immune system. So you'll have like a very rich understanding of how actual reality works. And within that reality, you will try to do, let's say, mental simulations to come up with hypotheses that if I do this thing differently, maybe this will behave differently and so on. And then based on those hypotheses, you'll go ahead and do experiments and collect feedback and iterate. If you just have an LLM, it's not capable of doing any of it as of now. But LLMs as an input to a larger system is probably capable of getting there.
Would you say in that case the LLM is the language center of... So I append the LLM.
So LLMs are very great at producing... Like the way to think about LLMs are that they are great knowledge sources. So you can query them anything and they have... Because it's almost like you have an instant Google that you can pose any question to and get a sense of. So for example, you can ask whether X gene behaves in a certain way in a cancerous cell or not. That fact, if it's trained on enough scientific data, is more likely to be right and wrong. But you can't just tell LLM, you should solve cancer and do it, because it will just interpolate and it will probably just mix
a bunch of different
few
ideas.
Articles and research papers it's read and interpolate somewhere in between. That's why most answers by LLM on complex queries is underwhelming. It's sort of like reading a random web article.
Is it true that LLMs
But people are changing that. People are changing that by just using LLMs as one part of the system.
And they're appending other...
Yeah. For example, could you add search to it? For example, could you have an LLM output an experiment that probably a real scientist can do and give feedback, so that even LLM's understanding becomes better over a period of time.
Could I attach a cybernetic suit to it and allow it some motor functionality?
But I feel there are fundamentals that we still require some fundamental breakthroughs before we can have AIs who think as well as humans. And the way to think about this, this is called artificial general intelligence.
Yeah.
And the current paradigm really is I'll train on tons of data and I'll test on problems which are very similar to data.
Sure.
So OpenAI is, let's say, reasoning models perform really well on math and coding problems because they've trained on tons of math and coding problems. But to me, AI needs to be, can I solve problems in a domain that I've never seen before?
Right.
Or can I behave in an intelligent way in an environment I've never seen before?
Right.
And not whether can I perform really well on things I've just seen tons of.
Right.
So current LLM is more closer to algorithms and databases that you can query.
Right.
And not like something you can put in novel situations and expect them to behave.
So it's not an independent thinking machine yet?
No.
And so it is dependent, one on the data, two on the query, very heavily, to sort of function. And so on one end, there is historical human contribution. On this end, there is present human contribution, and only then can it probably find its way, right?
Yeah.
And so how far do you think are we from something that is an independent agent thinking machine?
Yeah, predicting fundamental breakthroughs is always impossible.
We don't know.
Yeah.
And so it could be 5 years or 50 years?
Yeah, could be.
Maybe more.
Yeah. But all the incentives are towards getting it. There's a lot of investment, and if you do it, you unlock a lot of economic growth.
Yeah.
So people are highly incentivized for it, but of course, if you knew how to do it, you would do it. And if you don't know how to do it, how could you predict when it will happen?
Before this OpenAI blitzkrieg, there was a moment, this was myth, this was lore, people would say this very casually in conversation. There once, I think Google or Facebook said two AIs to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And very quickly they realized English is not efficient enough for them to talk in, and so they started talking in code, at which point they switched it off. Can you check this, if this is true?
Yeah, there's more hype in these stories generally than what happens, but it makes sense, right?
Right. It might be the case.
Why would two machines talk in the same language as two humans who evolved in a very different context?
And I also
if you give different goals to machine.
Right.
गाइज, अगर ये सुन के आपको भी लगा वाओ, मैं भी ऐसे सोचना चाहता हूँ, मैं सीखना चाहता हूँ ऐसे कैसे सोचते हैं, तो क्या करना है? सब्सक्राइब का बटन, सब्सक्राइब.